Welcome back to Hedgehog Hollow for another lesson. This is another one by request. I'm running through the shopping district back to my base so I can show you my furnace array. I'm sure you've seen many furnace arrays. The reason why I was asked to do a demo of mine is because I do not use minecarts in my furnace array. It is done completely with hoppers and redstone. What that really means is that I don't have to work with any minecart loaders and work with the timing to make sure that the carts are full before sending them out. It also means that I will never have that situation where you reload a chunk and nothing is working and you go to check to find out that a minecart has just stopped in the middle of a track. This will require a lot of iron because it uses a lot of hoppers. But you can make it very small to begin with and then expand it over time, so I consider it a starting way to make a furnace array. The specific one I'm going to show you is the one I have under my base here, which has 15 furnaces inside the furnace array. Let's go down into the main part of the base. The furnace array is down underneath the storage area. I have some stairs back here to get down so you can see it. And here it is, 15 furnaces in an array. The inputs for both fuel and for smelting items is up here at the top. These four shulkers go to different things. The green shulker is where I put in things to be smelted, and the black shulker is where I put in fuel for the furnace array. The output of the furnace array is down below. It comes out the bottom of all the furnaces and goes into my sorting system, which is a standard sorter. As you can see back here. I made yet another video about this a while ago. Enough talk, let's get started. This is a copy of the furnace array that I just showed you. There are 15 furnaces in the array. They get loaded evenly for both the items being smelted and the fuel being used. I put the fuel, the input, and the output side by side here for convenience right above the array. The array itself is not hard. There are 15 furnaces side by side, a whole lot of hoppers, some stone and some redstone, with a couple comparators and torches there at the end. Before we make an array, I want to show you the basics of how a furnace works with hoppers. I'm going to have a chest here, and I'm going to put a hopper that goes into that chest. I'm going to place a furnace on top of the hopper. This next hopper is going to go into the side. It can go in any side. I'm putting it in the back. And then finally, one more hopper is going to go straight down into the top of the furnace. To finish, I add a couple chests. And now you pretty much have an automated furnace. The chest that is on the back, the one that's on the hopper that goes in the side, is where you put fuel that's going to go into the furnace. Let's put a stack of coal in there. You can see that the hopper pulls the fuel out of the chest and pushes it into the furnace. Now this top chest is where we put the things that we want to smelt. We can throw a stack of copper in. The hopper pulls those items out of the chest, pushes them into the furnace, and they get smelted. In the end, all of the items that are smelted get pulled out the bottom by that lower hopper and pushed into your output chest. And that's really all there is to interacting with a furnace using hoppers. Now let's build an array. Let's start by placing the output chest. Then I need 15 hoppers going into it, one for each of the furnaces. I'm going to add one extra one just for spacing so I don't have my output chest right against the furnaces. Now I'm going to put 15 furnaces on top of these output hoppers. They can face in any direction. I point them off to the side so that I can see if they're running or not. If it's not obvious, I'm crouching while I do this so that I can place things on top of the hoppers. Every furnace needs a hopper going straight down into the top of it. And another hopper is going to go straight down into the top of each of those. Next, I need a run of solid blocks next to that set of hoppers. It can be any solid block that you want. It can't be glass, it can't be a slab or stairs. Just basically any solid block here will work. The point is that it has to be able to carry the redstone signal, which I'm doing by putting redstone on top of each of the blocks. When activated, that redstone will lock those hoppers that we just placed. Next, we want to put hoppers on top of this, but these are different. This last one can go straight down. The rest feed forward into that last one so that things will run across the top of this hopper set. And like the output, I'm going to add one extra input just to space things out a little bit. And I'm going to put a chest on top of this. That's my input chest. That handles all of the input for things to smelt. Now we have to do the input almost exactly the same for the fuel. Start by putting a hopper going into the side of each of your furnaces. Just to repeat, it doesn't really matter which way your furnaces face. It doesn't matter which side that this goes into. I just think it looks good going into the back. Next, we have to hop up on top of this so that we can put a hopper pointed straight down into each of those. Here you can see that we're repeating what we did for the input line. We're going to put this whole set of hoppers pointed down, and then again, a block, any solid block, needs to run along the side of these so that we can run a redstone signal across the top of it and lock that row of hoppers that we just put down. And now the redstone again. Redstone can move 15 blocks long. That's the reason why this hopper array is limited to 15 blocks. Now one hopper going straight down, and the rest of them feeding horizontally into that one so that they move all the fuel across the line to the end. And one extra one right here. And you'll be tempted to drop a line going straight down here so you can put your chest up here. But notice what happens, these chests are going to join each other. So for now, to correct for that, I'm going to put the chest down here, just one down. That keeps them separate and not joined. The last part of this is going to be the redstone that is going to detect when it's time to move things into the hoppers. You start by placing a block. This is any block that can hold up a comparator, and then put a comparator on top of it so it's feeding off of that very last line on the top. And we need a block that comes off of that so it can hold a redstone signal. And then you need a target block on the side, and you're wondering which side. Well, let me put it here and you can see this is not the correct side because this needs to have a torch that feeds a redstone line, and there's no redstone line here. It needs to be on this other side so that when I put the block here and I put a redstone torch next to it, it is going to light up that redstone line and lock all of those hoppers on that second row. The redstone line is glowing, they're all locked. And now we're going to build a mirror image of this one down for the fuel line. When I put the redstone down here, it's going to connect to the upper one. That's okay for the moment because we can fix it once we get this in place. Put the redstone torch in. And then we can break that connection by putting a solid block right here. And if I hop over, you can see that the connection is broken. And now you have a fully functioning array of 15 furnaces. Let's go test it out. This top chest is for putting in items to smelt. The lower chest is fuel. Let's fill that one up first by filling it full of coal. The coal travels along this upper hopper line, and when the first one gets to the end, it's going to blink this comparator, which will unlock that second row of hoppers just a moment to pull one line through. We'll see it again, and now we can go look. We'll see that the coal is going down into the furnace array one at a time. You can check furnace by furnace and see this being evenly distributed. Eventually all of them is going to have 4 coals inside them, with the 4 extra ones at the front because 60 would be 4 each, and I put 64 in. We can do the same thing now by putting some copper ore in here. It's going to travel along this upper array, and when it gets to the end you'll see this blink, and now all the furnaces are turned on. As it does them, it's going to go down into the output chest, and we'll see it come in. It's just a moment. And what we're going to get is an entire batch of 15 from that first row of copper that went through. Then the next row will go through, next row will go through, smelting 15 copper items at a time. And let me do a quick fly around just so you can see the entire setup and compare it to what you've built. And that's how you build the hopper array. Next, I want to get into some details about exactly how it works. This is one slice of the hoppers. There's a short version right here, and then the version I just showed you with 3 hoppers over here on the left. Once you see exactly how it works, you'll see why I prefer this one over here with 3 hoppers instead of the one with 2. You can recognize this slice. There's 15 of them in your array. This is the input line for things that get smelted. This is the input line for the fuel. Now below the input line there is a hopper that's next to a block that is charged and locks that hopper. And then you have another hopper below each of those that pulls things down. So when things are coming in through the top one and this is lit up, this hopper in the middle is locked and will not pull anything down until the redstone signal turns off. Then it will start pulling items straight down. Once they're in here, because it blinks so quickly, I need this hopper below to continue pulling things down into the furnace. Without the extra hopper over here, what can happen is on a quick blink, the item will come down into the locked hopper, but there is nothing to pull it into the furnace, so I have to wait for it to unlock again, which means I'm always going to have one item sitting in this array of hoppers, waiting to go down into the furnace for the next blink. And that's perfectly fine if you use this a lot, because you keep pushing things through over and over, but I don't really use it a whole lot, which is why I prefer to not have this simpler setup, and I go for the larger one with the extra hoppers to clear it out every time. This is a diagram of a shortened version of the array. There is a barrel at the top with some items to put into the furnace. You can see the 3 rows of hoppers, the top one going off to the side and the ones below it pointing straight down. I made the redstone line just a big red line to show that the middle row of hoppers is currently locked. Now we can see how this works step by step. An item is pulled into the first hopper. It gets pushed into the next hopper as another item is pulled into the first hopper. And this keeps happening. This is how we end up with one item in each of the hoppers on that top row. Eventually, this single file parade of items reaches the end of the hopper array. The comparator is suddenly going to turn on because there is an item in that last hopper. That signal is pulled into the target block, which turns off the redstone torch, turning off the redstone line. Now that they are unlocked, the middle row of hoppers each pull down one item, which means that the last hopper no longer has any items in it, so the comparator turns off. With the comparator off, the redstone torch turns back on, locking that middle set of hoppers. Because they are locked, that middle set of hoppers will not push the items further down. That is why there is a set of hoppers below them. It is not necessary to have this set of hoppers. If you did not have them, the next time something gets all the way to the end of the line and turns off the redstone torch, those items would get pushed down into the furnace. But I do have an extra set of hoppers that pulls all of those items down and then pushes them into the furnace array. You can see that while that was happening, the last couple items are now marching along through the top row of hoppers. And when they reach the end, they're going to turn on that comparator, which is going to turn off the torch. That unlocks the second row of hoppers, which pulls them down, which causes that second row of hoppers to lock again. But the lower hoppers pull the items down once again, and they end up down into the furnaces. Now I want to show you that you don't have to build this all at once, because you're not going to have a whole lot of iron when you start the game. So you can build this one slice at a time. Obviously you're going to need your output chest, and you're going to need to have a hopper that goes into it, and then you're going to put a furnace on top of that. And remember to crouch when you're placing things on the furnace or on top of a hopper, otherwise it opens them up. Now I'll go place a hopper that feeds into the top of it. This is for the things you're going to smelt, and I'll put a hopper into the back that's going to let the fuel go in. And when you're very first starting, this is good enough. You can put some chests on these so that you have the ability to put in a whole bunch of extra fuel or in a whole bunch of items to smelt. Eventually they'll all go in and end up in the output chest. Then over time you're going to get some more iron, and you're going to be able to make more hoppers. You know that you need 3 hoppers on top of each of them. So once you get more hoppers, you can go up, just get rid of the chest for a moment, add your extra set of hoppers, and put the chests on top of them. This will be 2 hoppers now, which is getting close to 3, and it still works just as before. You put items in these chests, and it all goes into this hopper. The next thing that you know is that you're going to have to lock that second row of hoppers once you put something on top of it. That is done with any solid block, and you're going to have tons of solid blocks, such as cobblestone. So you can put that up there, and then add some redstone to the top of them. The redstone won't do anything now because it's not lit up, so everything continues to work just as it was. And when you have more hoppers, again, you add them to the top, and you put your chest back on top of them again. And now you have one complete slice of your furnace array. I personally treat this as the very last slice of the array. I'm going to build towards myself here. So I'm going to go around on this side, consider it the back side. I'm going to start adding some blocks to build out that logic that's going to detect when there's something in the end and unlock the middle row. You should have the ingredients for everything except for that comparator. At the beginning of the game, you can't make a comparator because it requires a nether quartz. Once you get your nether quartz, you can make the comparator and you can build out this entire logic part of it. And the common mistake I make is I forget that those 2 redstone lines get connected, and I need to put a solid block here to break them apart. And technically you have a furnace array now. You have all of the logic in place for the entire furnace array. You just have one furnace, so it's not really going to be an array. Once you get your iron to build a lot more hoppers, you can expand. Get rid of the chests here, and then you're going to add out one further. Move your hopper into that chest. Remember to crouch. Add your new furnace, so now your furnace array is 2. Again, crouch. And then start placing all of the hoppers in place. You'll be tempted to make them all pointed straight down like this, but that top one, remember, it has to go into the back. So you need to hop up a little bit, come in at an angle, and put it into the back, and then repeat over down next to your fuel. It's going to mimic this with one hopper going into the back or the side of your furnace, one going straight down into that. You're going to have to angle this guy in, so hop up and send him off to the side. I find it easier to come over here to this side. And make sure you have your solid blocks with your redstone to lock the hoppers on the second row on both sides. Add your input chest for your fuel and then for your input, and you have a 2 furnace array. And you can keep doing this over and over till you get all 15 of them. And I want to point out that you don't have to make 15. If you get to here and you just want 2, that's fine. If you want 6, that's fine. 15 is the limit because that's how far the redstone dust can travel. And now to end, there's a little part that really doesn't have anything to do with the furnace array. It's just how to make it pretty the way that I did here. Now these 2 inputs should be obvious. My fuel and my main items that I want to smelt, all I do is just use hoppers to send them down into the line on the back side. You can see them right here. The items are pulled down and then they get sent down the line for both my input and for my fuel. The output shulker up here is a little bit different. The items have to get pushed up. So I have a stack of droppers here that push them up. Once smelted, items go into the bottom dropper. And this is a very common system here to detect that there's something in the hopper and send a signal to push things up. The use of an observer here speeds up how quickly it sends things up the line. And if I put something here in the bottom, you'll see that it's going to pop up in that output chest up at the top very quickly. And there it is, along with all of the copper that I smelted when I was testing this. I'm using shulkers here because I can color them, which I like. You could use barrels also. If you want to use chests and they keep joining, alternate between regular chests and trap chests. And that's everything. If you have issues with rails, you don't really like using them, and you want to have a furnace array, this is a furnace array that works perfectly fine without any rails and is perfectly fair. The items are distributed evenly to all of the furnaces. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you have any requests for another tutorial, just please drop a comment down below. Goodbye.